Sarah Darling. This actress thinks she's just picking up a script at the studio when she gets a call from who she believes is the movie director Roman Bridger. But Sarah has no idea what she's walking into. When she arrives at the empty studio to collect her script, the dread starts creeping in. But by then, it's already too late for Sarah. After Ghostface reveals himself on the call, Sarah gets super scared. So she tries to escape, really badly. Get a weapon at least, Sarah. She mistakes the security guard on his rounds for Ghostface and decides to run into a super secure room. Just kidding. Sarah runs into literally the dumbest room possible. Ghostface chases her around the room while she attempts to defend herself with movie props. She swings and misses him before getting clapped. Sarah is thrown through the window of a door, or whatever it's called, before being stabbed in the back. R.I.P. Cece Cooper. This college student and Omega Beta Zeta sorority member in the sorority house while everyone else is getting lit. The phone calls start innocently enough, and Cece just thinks it's her boyfriend drunk. But Cece knows something's wrong when those familiar threatening tones begin. With no one around to help and strange noises echoing through the house, she's completely isolated and vulnerable. When Ghostface finally reveals himself, Cece runs through the house in pure terror. But there's nowhere to go. While she's running, we get one of the funniest scenes in the franchise of her throwing everything except her grandma down the stairs. The killer catches her and stabs her twice in the back, but that's not enough. Ghostface throws her over the balcony to the ground below, and Cece dies from both the stabbing and the devastating fall. The combination of stabbing and falling makes this death particularly brutal, but somehow, this wasn't even close to the most painful. Judy Hicks. As Woodsboro's sheriff, Judy thought she could protect everyone, especially her son Wes. When Ghostface calls and threatens her boy, she locked in as a mother. She rushes home in pure panic whilst desperately calling for backup, but she knows she might be too late. The cruel irony is that Judy dies steps away from her own front door, calling out for the son she's trying to save. Ghostface emerges from behind a bush in broad daylight. Doesn't look suspicious at all. He stabs her repeatedly on her own front porch, the place where she should feel safest. Judy dies knowing she failed to protect the person who mattered most to her. The psychological torture of a mother dying while trying to save her child makes this death very painful. But unfortunately, this was just the beginning of this family's nightmare.
Wes Hicks. This innocent kid is just making dinner, setting the table like a good son, waiting for mom to come home. He even gets a text from Judy's phone, not knowing Ghostface is already using it to toy with him. When Wes notices the front door is open, he cautiously investigates like pretty much anyone would, but he's not there until Wes turns around. Ghostface teleports behind him as he's locking the door and brutally murders him. Just a knife driven straight through his neck. Wes dies instantly, never knowing his mother would also die the same day trying to save him. The combination of sudden brutality and preventability makes this death particularly painful to watch, as this guy was just inches away from grabbing a weapon. But this was nothing compared to the next one. Maureen Evans. She's just enjoying a sneak preview of Stab with her boyfriend, Phil Stevens, surrounded by excited, costumed fans in the packed theater. When Phil leaves to use the restroom, Maureen has no idea he's been replaced by Ghostface. The killer sits right next to her, and she doesn't suspect a thing. Ghostface stabs Maureen repeatedly in the side during the movie, while she's startled by the rowdy audience and film's violence. She stands up and staggers in front of the screen. She is bleeding profusely, and the entire audience thinks it's a publicity stunt or just a couple crazy fans. Maureen collapses and dies in front of people who are cheering for her death, thinking it's entertainment. The psychological horror of dying while people cheer makes this death incredibly disturbing. But this wasn't even close to the most agonizing. Tatum Riley, Sydney's best friend and Dewey's sister, just wants to grab some drinks from the garage during a party at Stu Macher's house. She finds the garage door locked and lights flickering, then encounters Ghostface. She first thinks it's someone playing a prank. By the time she realizes the danger, it's too late. After Ghostface slashes her arm, Tatum desperately tries to escape. She fights back and actually does surprisingly well, but that doesn't last very long. She attempts to escape through a doggy door, and that's where it all goes wrong. Very wrong. Ghostface opens the garage door while she is still trapped in the small door. The door slowly lifts Tatum's trapped body. She's conscious and struggling as the door crushes her, unable to escape the mechanical death trap that seems like it's straight out of Saw. The garage door doesn't just kill her, it displays her body like a gruesome trophy. The slow crushing makes this one of the most painful deaths to watch. But this wasn't even close to the most excruciating. Randy Meeks. As the horror movie guru and film student, Randy knows all the rules for surviving a slasher film. But when his group tries to use him as bait to catch Ghostface, Randy can't resist taking the call and taunting the killer. He thinks he's smart, pacing around a news van with his friends nearby, believing he understands how these killers operate. Ghostface suddenly yanks Randy into the van and stabs him repeatedly in the cramped space. The killer attacks him out of sight while his friends hear the struggle but can't reach him in time. Randy's body is left inside the van and he dies from multiple stab wounds. The one person who understood how these killers operate dies because he got cocky and broke his own survival rules. The irony of the horror expert dying makes this death particularly painful for fans. But Randy's death was nowhere near as agonizing as the next one. Jennifer Jolie. This actress is playing Gail Weathers in Stab 3 and staying at John Milton's mansion with other cast members. When the group discovers a series of murders targeting the cast, Jennifer becomes increasingly paranoid and
desperately tries to find Dewey and Gale for protection. Ghostface chases her through the mansion's hidden passages until she finds herself trapped behind a two-way mirror. Jennifer can see Dewey and Gale on the other side. Help is literally right there, but they can't reach her. It's like being in a glass coffin, watching your own death approach. Ghostface finds her hiding spot and stabs Jennifer repeatedly through the mirror. She's trapped, wounded, and forced to watch her would-be rescuers frantically try to help while being completely powerless to save herself. Jennifer bleeds out slowly, dying inches away from safety. The helplessness and slow death make this particularly excruciating. But this was nothing compared to what comes next. Anika Kayoko, Tara Carpenter's roommate and friend, finds herself trapped in Sam and Tara's apartment during a brutal Ghostface attack. After the killer breaks in and stabs Sam's boyfriend Quinn, the group barricades themselves in a bedroom with no way out except a desperate escape plan, setting up a ladder between their window and the neighboring apartment. Anika, already wounded in the stomach and bleeding heavily, is the last to cross the precarious ladder. She struggles to crawl across while her life drains away, knowing one wrong move means death. Just when she's almost to safety, Ghostface bursts into the room and violently shakes the ladder. Anika loses her grip and falls several stories, dying on impact in the alley below. The combination of being wounded, the terrifying height, and dying just feet from safety makes this death particularly agonizing. But this wasn't even close to the most painful. Dewey Riley. This former sheriff has survived multiple Ghostface massacres and joined Sam's group to help stop the latest killer. Despite his strained relationship with Gale after years apart, Dewey goes to the hospital when he learns Ghostface is targeting Tara. His experience makes him confident, but it also makes him reckless. He insists on confronting Ghostface alone to ensure the killer is truly dead. Dewey shoots Ghostface but makes a fatal mistake. He goes back to deliver a headshot instead of leaving immediately. Ghostface gets up and attacks Dewey in the hospital hallway with unprecedented brutality. The killer stabs him multiple times in the front and back, then delivers a final upward stab that disembowels him. Dewey dies from his wounds just as Gale arrives too late to save him. The tragedy of a franchise veteran dying because he broke his own survival rules makes this death heartbreaking. But this wasn't the most painful death in the series. Casey Becker. What starts as an innocent phone call about scary movies becomes a deadly game. Casey thinks she's talking to a harmless stranger until she realizes her boyfriend Steve is tied up outside, already dead. The psychological torture goes on for minutes as Ghostface plays with her mind before revealing himself. When the attack finally comes, it's relentless. Casey is stabbed repeatedly, strangled, and when her parents arrive home, they find their daughter disemboweled and hanging from a tree in their front yard. The combination of psychological torture, multiple stab wounds, strangulation, and disembowelment makes this death incredibly painful. Casey's death traumatized an entire generation and proved that no one was safe in this franchise. But as brutal as this iconic death was, it wasn't the most painful in the series. Olivia Morris. This high school student is home alone, talking to her friends Jill and Kirby, who are watching from the house across the street. When Ghostface calls to threaten her, Olivia can see her friends, but they can't help her. She's literally dying in front of people who care about her, but are powerless to save her. Ghostface bursts from her closet and attacks with unprecedented brutality. Olivia is stabbed multiple times and thrown around her room like a rag doll. She tries to fight back, but the killer is relentless. Then comes the worst part. Ghostface disembowels Olivia while her friends watch helplessly from across the street. Jill and Kirby have to watch their friend being tortured and killed in real time, knowing they can't reach her fast enough to help. Olivia dies from massive blood loss and trauma, while her friends witness every horrible second. What makes this the most painful death is the combination of extreme violence and the psychological torture of dying in front of people you love who can't save you. But if you think these scream deaths were brutal, you won't believe the most painful deaths in Alien. Click the video.